Today, we look at some split album series that should happen. Check it. Seeing a band live is always a great experience. It's really awesome when things kind of go unscheduled and they put a cover song in their set list rather than another one of their own. It shows diversity of the band, and it also shows where they kind of draw influence from. Also, while connecting with the audience. Sometimes you might not know the band that's playing the song, but if they rock out a cover song from 10 years ago, you're going to know every single word to it. And everyone loves it, especially when it's a song from a band that everyone knows. So today we're going to take a look at some cross albums that I wish would happen. BYO Records used to put out this insanely rad concept album series, where they would pick two bands, and the bands would cover each other's songs, dividing the album straight down the middle so each band had an equal amount of songs they would cover. Some of their past ones include the Bouncing Souls and Anti-Flag, who covered each other's songs, Alkaline Trio and One Man Army, and the one that got me most into the series and the idea was Rancid and No Effects. The last one to be made was in 2004, and it was just awesome at the time to hear rad bands cover other rad bands. Every once in a while you'll catch a glimpse of that, like at the Alternative Press Music Awards, where bands like All Time Low and Neck Deep do these badass power medleys of pop punk and punk rock classics. I was actually at the 2015 Alternative Press Music Awards, and seeing All Time Low perform this live was fucking amazing. So looking back on that, it got me thinking, what would be your dream band split albums? And today, here they are. When I say we're gonna jump into it, I just eat or drink something with a fast forward filter on it. So that's gonna be the thing from now on. Now the first one on this list is Knuckle Puck and Belmont. This would be one hell of an interesting pair for the two bands to swap songs. While I originally thought that Knuckle Puck would be better as a switch with The Story So Far or Real Friends, due to a more emo meets pop punk sound, the whole thing that got me into the Belmont idea was the way that they play their drums. There's these intricate, insane drum fills that just don't belong in certain places. And to hear them cover that would be completely awesome. Now, while Belmont's more of a, I guess, heavier, I don't know what you'd even call them, you still have the more aggressively emo pop punk sound of Knuckle Puck. Hearing Belmont cover a more somber song like Untitled, and Knuckle Puck covering this super fast, intricate tune like Overstepping would be awesome to see. Let me know what you think down below. The Used and My Chemical Romance. Like I said, these are dream split albums, not ones that will necessarily ever happen. It's no new news that The Used and My Chemical Romance are friends. It is old news that My Chemical Romance keep dick teasing everybody with the idea of a potential reunion. But I guess the closest thing we're going to get right now is The Umbrella Academy. Make sure you watch that on Netflix, not an endorsement. If you don't believe they're friends, just take a look at their cover of David Bowie and Queen's Under Pressure. There's everything there for a recipe for an awesome split cover album. 1. The range. Burt McCracken and Gerard Way both have insane range when it comes to vocals. They could both belt out crazy ass notes and probably each other's. The Scream. We both know that they can yell, especially The Used. And to see Gerard doing some of the Used songs would be awesome. That something special. Something. I can't put my finger on it, but it's just something about both the bands that have that dreary, emo, romantic style of writing that would be a creepy, awesome crossover. All Time Low and Mayday Parade. There's a couple good reasons why I'd like to see this. The bands have both jumped from more of a pop punk sound to a pop rock sound in the recent years. Neither of the bands are unfamiliar with the cover song territory, with both of the bands performing on the Punkos Pop series, picking songs from that. My all-time favorite one from that was back in the day, geez, All Time Low covering Umbrella by Rihanna. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Rush and Coheed Cambria. I know, I'm jumping off the pop punk track here a little bit. Don't adjust your acid trip, because shit just got real. That is if you're familiar with these like mega progressive rock mammoths. To try to understand why these two bands have been picked amongst the slew of pop punk bands, you must understand the importance of the two. First, Canadian prog rockers, Rush. Rush used to be the band that everyone got made fun of for listening to like 40 years ago. They were too technical, and their songs were too long. And Geddy Lee, lead singer and bassist, his voice was too high-ranged for commercial radio. Along with Neil Peart's crazy drumming progressive style, and the band's lyrical content. You swear that by their lyrics that they were talking about how the universe was built, but actually in the song The Red Barchetta, they're talking about a goddamn car. The songs are more like mini rock operas than anything. By any standard of the day, they were not defined as radio-friendly due to the length of their songs. Due to most songs being 3 minutes and under, and most Rush's songs were 5 to 6, the sheer complexity of their tunes, and the overall taboo of progressive rock jumping to mainstream. And now for Coheed. Holy shit, where do I begin? I guess you'd begin at the beginning, in the late 90s. The band started in the 90s where lead singer, guitarist Claudio Sanchez started writing this kind of weird comic book story line thing that he actually turned into songs. The songs were epic, the lyrics meaningful as hell, and they all tied into this storyline, drawing in characters' names, and were all the first songs from the first album, Second Stage Turbine Blade. Fans were hooked and began a cult following. I kind of see a pattern here. I mean, that's exactly how Rush got started. Now, these two kind of sound similar. If you haven't heard of Rush, you've probably heard of Coheed, and also vice versa. And if you haven't heard either of them, you might be mistaken that one is for the other. Both of them have a very high range, both progressive as hell, and a lot of their lyrics are kind of intricate. If there are any two bands I'd like to see do one on this list, it's definitely Rush and definitely Coheed Cambria. Flogging Molly and the Dropkick Murphys. Now, there's really not much to say about these two bands, so if you're surprised by this pick, you should probably just leave the channel now. If you've ever been to a gigantic music festival, involved in the music scene, and went to a show, or at the bare minimum have been blackout drunk on St. Paddy's Day, then you had to have stumbled across one or both of these bands. Celtic punk has kind of been a staple of the punk rock community, with influences from The Clash and Johnny Cash, combined with bagpipes, fiddles, and fast punk beats. What could be any better? Both bands have insane followings at their live shows, and if you've never been to one, then get off your ass. I would love to see the Dropkick Murphys cover Drunken Lullabies, and love to see Flogging Molly cover The Dirty Glass. Sum 41 and New Found Glory. So much can be said about these two mega pop punk bands. Both have had many ups and downs since their breakout career in the early 2000s, from member changes to sound changes. But the bands have maintained the same at core. You know that you love to see Sum 41 covering Failure's Not Flattering, or New Found Glory covering Walking Disaster. That'd be sick as hell. Avenged Sevenfold and Metallica. Avenged Sevenfold has proved throughout the years that they can dip their toes in the waters of not only punk rock and pop punk, but also metal and progressive rock, showing up on both the Vans Warped Tour and Ozfest all throughout the years. Even after the loss of their first drummer, Jimmy the Rev Sullivan, that didn't slow the band down at all. Even getting a slew of drummers, including Dream Theater's Mike Portnoy. And must we talk about Metallica? If you don't know who Metallica is, then just leave. Metallica, though, just like Avenged Sevenfold, or should I say it the other way around, because Metallica came first, has been through a shit ton of ups and downs throughout the years, dishing out different sounds, and even not being any stranger to loss, losing bassist Cliff Burton in a bus accident. In September 1986, Metallica has strived on through. They actually gave kudos to Avenged Sevenfold, saying that they were the next up-and-coming band. You know you'd love to see Metallica cover Unholy Confessions, and I would definitely love to see Avenged Sevenfold cover Welcome Home Sanitarium. Green Day and Blink-182. Ever since the fabled Pop Disaster Tour in 2002, with Blink-182, Green Day, Jimmy Eat World, and Saves the Day, everybody has been wanting more ever since that tour. Like NoFX and Rancid, which worked well on a split record, both of these bands have more differences than similarities. But it's just something about these two pop-punk giants that just make them so much alike. Having basically the same fan base, growing up around the same area, who the hell wouldn't want to see these two bands collaborate? Green Day are no new faces to pop-punk, going through the first wave of pop-punk back in the early 90s. Hell, they even played Woodstock in 1994. Blink-182, though, is kind of non-biased, since I've been loving the band since I was 15 years old. Anything anybody says about them doesn't really faze me. I like their older, and I like their newer stuff, even the stuff Matt Skiba's on. And after the band blew up in 1999 with Enema of the State, I haven't looked back. Who the hell wouldn't want to see Green Day covering Pathetic, or Carousel, or even a more childish tune like Happy Holidays, You Bastard? And on the other end of the scale, especially with Matt Skiba in the band, seeing Blink-182 cover Basket Cakes, or Longview, or Minority. And last but not least, is Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco. Now, I don't have to say a whole lot about these bands. They both changed their sound throughout the years, going from more of a pop punk to a pop rock sound. Brendan Urie of Panic at the Disco basically taking the helm and writing everything for Panic at the Disco. Whereas Fall Out Boy's newest album, Mania, was a huge jumping shift from their pop punk sound to pop rock. The band has always been compared to sounding the same, and even while listening to the tune $20 Nosebleed off of Fall Out Boy's album Fully Ado, Brendan Urie actually sings part of the chorus and part of the verses in the tune. And if you line Patrick Stump and Brendan Urie side by side, some parts of that song, it's unidentifiable as to who's actually singing it. It would be awesome to see these two split an album with each other. Hearing Fall Out Boy cover I Write Sins Not Tragedies, and Panic at the Disco covering Sugar We're Going Down. Are there any other bands you think should make the list? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks a whole lot for commenting, and subscribing to this. Share this on over to people who like pop punk music and pizza. Not with the pineapple on it, that's just savage. I have a weekly podcast called the Pop Punk Dadcast, available on iTunes and SoundCloud. Subscribe to both of those. SoundCloud.com/the Pop Punk Dad, and you can find the Pop Punk Dadcast on iTunes. Check out the Pop Punk Dad merch shop. You can buy a cool thing like that right there. It helps the channel out and lets me know that you love me. And above all else, stay pop punk. Later.